And I'm happy today to have a very prominent person in our community, a respected person, and a judge in the city court. We're so happy to have him, and I think you are in which division, Judge Bean?
I'm in Division 2. I'm the evening judge, afternoon, evening.
And Pat Brown, a friend of mine from Red Bank, he's also your court officer.
He is court officer. He used to be the mayor out at Red Bank.
Yeah, I remember him. And he's also an active member of the Red Bank Baptist.
He is the head of the men's fellowship class. He's the president of it, and I'm a member of that class. So Pat and I are very close.
Russell, one thing I do know about the Bean family, they're well respected in Hamilton County and Chattanooga. And your father, and you have other members of the family that's lawyers, am I correct?
Yes, my father was Crawford Bean, and my uncle was Uncle Joe Bean. And they started practicing here together back in the late 1920s, and of course they built a good name for the Bean family here. Uh-huh. Uncle Joe was a politician, and he ran against Estes Kefauver for the state senate and defeated Estes. And he was the only person to ever beat Estes Kefauver until he ran for vice president. Mm-hmm. And he was up in state senate and stayed up there a little while and decided he wanted to practice law more, so he came back to Chattanooga.
Uh-huh. Well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but one thing that's on my mind, a lot of people's mind, I'd like to ask you this. Just reading about it, I'm not in office anymore, but I read about everything, and I think all of us are concerned about gangs.
It's a horrible situation.
I'd like to hear your opinion on gangs.
Well, of course, we have meetings. There's a group here of several of the officials that meet, and we've discussed it many, many times. Back in the late 1990s, I went to the legislature, and I proposed to the legislature an anti-gang bill. The gangs are a horrible situation. They're continuously growing. They grow on drugs. They grow on guns. They promote it within the schools. And my bill was going to outlaw gangs, basically, because it was going to place them in the criminal conspiracy statute in Tennessee. And what the criminal conspiracy statute says, if two or more persons organize for the purpose of criminal activity, it's illegal. Why I thought that would be very crucial would be that if you're in schools and you say you're a member of the gang, say if you're going into classrooms or down the hall and you say that, you could actually be charged with it. If you get in the courtroom or on the radio and you say you're a member of the gang, you could be charged with it. And I think that's the way that you're going to have to nip that in the bud. Also part of that statute was I was wanting to make it a high crime for somebody in a gang to carry a gun if they got caught with a weapon. And anybody also who illegally furnished a gun to a juvenile for the purpose of criminal activity would be a high crime, which would be like a Class A or Class B felony, which a minimum of 8 years in the penitentiary. So I think America's going to have to get tough on gangs or they're going to overtake us. I'm sure now in Chattanooga you have more members of a gang than you have members of the police departments.
Oh, yeah.
So
what do you predict, or how many do you think we do have, how many members of a gang? I mean, I know you wouldn't know for sure, but is it a lot?
It's in the thousands. I'd say it's
really?
In the thousands now. Yeah, I would. How many?
You mean 2,000 or 3,000?
Well, probably somewhere over 1,000 and probably up maybe 2 or 3.
Now, another question. How do they get the guns? I mean, somebody has to sell these guns. We got some people in this town that's as bad as they are because these kids can't buy guns, and they are buying them. Yeah.
Well, to start with, I am a believer in the Second Amendment. I believe that people have a right to have a gun to defend themselves as long as they're lawful, legal people, and it's for the purpose of defense. America has got to make a decision on what they're going to do about these guns, these sales of guns, these givings of guns. I know our local congressman back then jumped on the mayor of New York because he did kind of a sting operation over in Murfreesboro. I don't know if you remember that, but they had a gun show over in Murfreesboro, and they came in there with videos and audios, had a video on their hat, and came in and told the people they wanted to buy a lot of handguns, a lot of Uzis, things like that. And they told the people at the gun show, said, we can't pass a background check. And the folks there said, well, you don't have to. It's legal that you can go in and buy them without background check. So they sold these guns, just hundreds of them, to these people. And the congressman got on to the mayor up there and said, we'll do what we need in Tennessee. You stay up in New York. But basically, he was right.
But the mayor of New York had people here.
He had them all over the nation. He came
just
all over.
Yeah.
It was whatever his name is.
Lumberg.
Yeah, that's him. And it's just that people have such a belief in the Second Amendment that when you say anything about any kind of gun restrictions, they object to it. But we need to get together with the NRA and explain to the NRA we have a problem in these municipal areas, in these metropolitan areas with gangs, and we've got to come up with some laws to prevent people from giving them guns and how to get them. Some of them, I'm sure, they steal out of houses, but a lot of them are at flea markets. There's been a lot of reports that a lot of them come out of Atlanta up through across the state lines, and they purchase them here. But the bottom line is there's just all these young people that have guns. Just like the other night, they had 3 of them shot, and I think they put in custody, like a 14, 15, 16-year-old boy that had a gun. It's just bizarre.
Is there anything that you think maybe the churches could do I don't know what it would be. I'd hate to have that problem, that responsibility, but we got a lot of black churches and pretty prominent black ministers. Is there anything they could do, or do they try anything?
They do try, and I think they do help. They've gone into schools, and also they have a lot of programs at their churches from time to time, trying to mentor these children. I think that'd be a good thing in our schools too, Curtis, to have character education, and I mean start at the 1st and 2nd grade. We have a tendency to try to start later on, and it's a tremendous problem to try to turn around what's out in society in the school.
You mean have someone go to schools and talk to the classes and
start them at an early age about how to get along, and that we're in this together. We need to get along. We're the same country, and have more nationalism. That's one of our problems down in our country. We don't have the nationalism we used to have because we have 3 different segments of the nationality.
I would say that our schools are covered up with so many other problems, but I think it would be great if they try that. But now think about all the gangs. Does the schools know who the gangs are? Does the school people know if a kid in that class is a gang member?
I think they do somewhat. That's why I say that I'd like to make it illegal to be in a gang. Schools are to teach. And what's happening now, all these teachers they're spending all their time trying to straighten things out, and there's no way to teach. And I think that's one of the reasons America's dropped. It's not only in Chattanooga, it's all over the country like that.
Well, I'll give you my opinion, too. I think we're too easy on crime. I mean, that's my opinion. And after being involved 22 years, not exactly involved, but no one put money in the sheriff's department, and I was with about 4 or 5 additions to Silverdale.
And you were appointing judges and things like that.
But the crime thing, when you look at our revenue compared to 1988 when I went in office and what we pay for the sheriff's department and Silverdale, I mean, it's more than triple. I mean, it's way on up there. And another thing that really I don't like, and we can't change this, is if you kill your grandmother and you got enough money, you can get out on bond the next day. Yeah. And that's worrisome to me, that if you got the money, you get out on bond. And my favorite story was when I used to make a little talk, I'd say a guy beats up his grandmother and steals her car, and they catch him the next day. You think, well, they got him. Well, he'd be out on bond in 30 minutes if he's got the money.
Yeah.
And then when he goes to court, 7 or 8, 10 months later, his preacher goes with him, and his wife goes with him, and he's got his little kids with him. They say he's just a good boy, and he didn't mean to do nothing. I just think that there's nothing the judges can do about that. I'm not criticizing judges. But we are easy on everybody. We're easy in schools. We're too easy in schools. When a boy acts up in school, we don't do anything about it. So I'm just saying, this generation, people that's in leading our schools. They do the best they can with the laws they got behind them, but we're just too easy on when a person breaks the law or breaks the rules at school. We're just too easy on them. Let them stay in school.
Well, on the bond issue, it is a constitutional guarantee that you're entitled to bond. The purpose of bond supposedly is to assure their appearance and make sure they're not a danger to the society. And to look at it the other way, what if somebody's innocent and you keep them in jail? You don't let them have bond, and later on they're found not guilty. Oh. So you do have that.
I can see where it would work that way. But does the judge have the authority to not make bonds?
Oh yeah. They can.
So a judge can, if he smells a rat, he sees this guy's pretty bad, and he can say no bond, right? On
certain cases, on like a murder case, certain cases like that, or if he's got a big record, But if it's, say, a first or second offense, you usually have to set a bond of some sort. But you can put a lot of restrictions. You can tell them they can't be out after a certain time. You keep them in the home. You just let them go to work, if they've got a job, things of that nature.
Of course, we've got the ankle bracelet.
Yeah, that helps
house
a lot
arrest. And one of the best programs we got is where you see these guys out on interstates picking up trash on the weekend.
Yeah.
A good man that you can count on, he can work out his time on the weekend and not have to lose his job and all that. We got a lot of good things going for us, I think all the judges and the school teachers are all overwhelmed. Is what I think.
Well, they are, and you mentioned about the jails. Of course, the jails are pretty much full.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems there is we do incarcerate some of the lower crimes too much. I understand shoplifting's a bad situation, writing checks are bad, but we do have to start at the top. The major crimes need to be placed in jail, and these others continuously. Of course, they work that way. The Attorney General, and they're trying to keep people out on house arrest and work release, but we just don't have enough room at the end. A lot of times they say the judges are laxed on these issues, but it's not necessarily the judges. The attorney generals come and make offers, and the judge just has to approve it. And a lot of times is if the jails are full.
Yeah. Well, I think that me and you, I'm not older than you, but if we had a new revival in America, our churches would be more powerful. They'd have a lot of influence. I grew up in Alton Park. And I can remember now, the churches are all full. You couldn't find a parking place. You couldn't. The seats was all packed. I've seen it standing room only. And we're away from that because the churches are away. We've had television and everything else that comes in and interferes with churches. Talking about churches, Fred Stillman was a great friend of mine. I think everybody loved Fred Stillman.
Fred, wonderful. I started Red Bank Baptist when Fred and his little family came in back in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And been a member there ever since.
Have you ever met a finer guy than Fred Stillman?
Fred's wonderful.
Well, what I want to ask you about now, the Red Bank's doing fine too, isn't it, the Baptist Church?
Bank Baptist? Where we're in between pastors right now. We had Adam Dooley, and he left. Went to Alabama. In fact, his little son has leukemia and is fighting that. So we're in prayer with him, and I hope everybody will pray for his son. But we're in the middle of it when we have a good interim.
So
pastor.
You don't have a regular pastor?
Not right now. Richard Land is our interim pastor, and he does a great job. But we do need to go on and get a pastor placed right away.
What, are you having people come in now and preach?
There are some coming in, and we have a committee that's looking into it. Are you interested in that?
Well, I'm not interested now.
Okay.
But,
you'd be good.
I don't think me and Earl would be a good pastor.
Well, speaking of that, you and Earl are two of my best buddies. I think the world of both of you.
Well, when I first met Earl, he just starting out in radio, and I just, started working with him and helped him, and I'm proud of what's happened to him. He's done real well.
Have y'all ever been interviewed on this show? The two of you, we need to get somebody in here to tell a little bit more about you or Earl in your history, because both of you have had great careers.
I'll tell you one thing. I hold a record. You remember the Sound Off on Sunday morning? 40 times I was on that program. And I loved it. And I'd always just speak my mind. And, boy, sometimes people get mad at me, and, they'd call me. And I'd always say, call me, I'll give them a home number. on the air. I'd say 867-7319. Call me at home. I'll talk to you about this. And what was funny, one guy called in on what we're talking about, the crime and everything. He's eating on me because we wasn't doing something about it. And I said, sir, and I tried to answer him as nice as I could. Call me 867-7319, and after church today, I'll call you. And so I called him back, and he was pretty nice when I talked to him, and found out it was my mailman.
Oh, my gosh.
He passed my house every day.
Yeah,
but me and Earl had a great time on that program because people, when they call you, they like for you to talk. They don't like for you to hee-haw.
Yeah.
And I'd give an answer, and sometimes it'd get me in a lot of hot water, But
you always spoke your mind. You did a great job.
When I ran for office, I was in my office at the newspaper when I kicked off my campaign. And I said, I'm a part of the press. I've been eating off the press all my life. I'll never dodge the press. And we had all these TV people in there covering it. And it wasn't real popular. Mr. Roy didn't like television people coming in the building because they were competitors. We had all the television people, and I announced that I was going to have an announcement. But I said I'll never dodge the press, and I never did. And I've been on WGOW on hot subjects. I dread to go.
But you just have to do it.
Well, if you're going to be out there in the front, I just don't think that people like a coward politician, and evidently like me. They elected me 6 times.
Yeah. Well, you did a good job. It's the reason they elected you. Were you a guest or a host on Hey Earl?
I was a guest.
Earl
never let me be the guest.
Be the host?
I mean, the host, no. I was always sitting there. He's sitting there grinning when I was getting chewed out. He just sat back and take
He wouldn't pay you when he was host,
He'd just take a sip of coffee and grin when some guy's eating me out.
Oh, okay.
He never did that. No, I hadn't thought about it, but he never did let me be the host.
You was wanting too much money, weren't you?
No, it was all free. But anyway, Judge, I think that people my age, and I'm 78, by the way, and 78 years old, it don't seem like it, but I'm 78.
Well, you don't look like it.
And if we all had done something different, I don't know what it could have been with our young people.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to have 4 children. I had 2 great sons, and one of them died with leukemia, and one of them died with liver cancer. But they never did get beyond my control, where I couldn't at least talk to them. I mean, even after they got grown, I mean, I couldn't. A lot of times they wouldn't listen, but they'd be respectful. And then my 2 daughters were just little queens. They never give me any problem. And we somehow, if you talk to school teachers, that's where the breakdown is. Daddies. We need some strong daddies. And then you go into a lot of the family problems now. There's so many divorces and everything. So, home's broken up, and it's just changed. And
yeah, a lot of people say that it starts in the home, and it really does. But a lot of these gang members, a lot of these youth crimes, their parents and maybe even their grandparents are not training them. I mean, there's reports of them even smoking marijuana and crack together. And so it's not going to come from some of these families. A lot of families, like your family, my family, I think we raised them right. One area that I thought I think you can almost timeline it, is when we took God out of school, when we took prayer and Bible teaching out of school. I think you started to see the character go down.
And I think everybody will tell you that because, and you remember it and I remember it, when I was at Alton Park Grammar School, example, first grade. We didn't have kindergarten either. We just started in first grade, if you remember. But you always had, and ever on the board, the teacher would have 3 names. The person that had the prayer, saluted the flag. And, she had everything lined up. And you knew who was going to do it for the whole week. We always through school it was that way. And then we'd have a chapel service on Thursday.
That's right.
And we'd all go in the auditorium. And we had a lady by the name of Miss Thurman that come out and taught the Bible. And she had what he called it, flannelgraph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then he'd have preachers. We have lost that.
Yeah,
and I don't know how it happened.
Well, it started, the way it happened was the United States Supreme Court had a ruling that you couldn't teach one specific religion in school. And that is somewhat of a problem, I guess, that, you got more religions than just the Christian religion. But I think they went overboard. They could have corrected that. They brought in examples of where there were certain schools where maybe they were going overboard on one religion, and you had people from other religions, which America does now have a lot of different religions. Mm-hmm. But they should have at least come up with, like you say, being patriotic to the flag, and also praying to whatever God you have. But they just took it totally out, and it amazes to me that they can say a prayer in Congress. You see on the pro football games, they can say a prayer. On the college football games, they say a prayer. But you go to the high school games, you're not supposed to say a prayer.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's just bizarre.
I've had a lot of problems with it. Of course, the county commission, we have prayer every meeting.
That's right. All the governmental agencies have it, but for some reason they don't let it in the school.
I learned the hard way, and I got a real lesson when we put the Ten Commandments in the courthouse.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good deal. 7 of us voted to do it, 7 out of 9.
Well, see, that was kind of an example, just like in the schools, of whether you could do it or not.
And then we raised the money. The money for the plaques and everything was paid for. It wasn't government money, and we were real clear on that. And then we sued, and not only did we lose, but we had to pay the ACLU's legal expenses, $37,000, and we had to scratch, and we sold the plaques to some rich people. We raised the money because we started off saying we'll never let the taxpayers pay for this.
And they didn't.
No, we raised the money, but I'm just saying I couldn't imagine, and I knew it was a little touchy and dangerous too, but I just couldn't imagine anybody would make us take those plaques. And where we put them up on where the judges are. Yeah. What would be up on where the circuit courts, where the divorces and all, and we thought, what would be a better thing to have those people up there waiting around to hear these cases,
to remind them of the
then
golden
we put
rules.
one in juvenile court where the young people's over there.
Yeah.
But anyway, we lost, and it was a bad case, and the ACLU came down, and they had 2 women lawyers, and I was speaking in a church on a Sunday night after that happened, and I didn't know they taped their program. And they wanted me to come and tell them about the case, and so I told them on the radio about the ACLU, and I said this, and I shouldn't, but I said 2 of the ugliest women I've ever met, women lawyers from ACLU.
They looked ugly when they were up there arguing against you, didn't they?
And after the church, they said, Brother Curse, we want to give you a copy of our program, and I didn't even know they were taping it. But luckily, it never got back to Nashville. But anyway, we've had some great experiences in Chattanooga. There's a lot of good things happening in Chattanooga.
Oh yeah.
I think we've got one of the best judicial systems we've ever had. I don't say that because you're the judge, but I respect all of our judges. I don't think there's a bad judge on the.
Well, the judges that I know are very dedicated. When they go back in chambers, they talk about how they can, how they can correct this or correct that, or how they can make it better. And sometimes they, some cases are close, very close.
Yeah.
And they'll come back and they're very concerned whether they made the right decision.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing, and I'm happy they have an appeals system because I always try to do what's right. I don't say I always do what's right, but I always try to do what's right in the cases.
And I think the judges, when I know them personally, I have, in my position as a commissioner, I've had real family things come up, real problems with the son. And I have talked to judges, but I never ask them to do anything. I just say, I want to tell you something about this family.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you about this. And they would try to help. I would never ask them. Had one guy on $25,000 bond, he lowered it. The boy really needed out, but I didn't ask him to do that. But what I'm saying, these judges respected people like me in my position, because we out here in the front of the public all the time, and a great bunch of people to work with, and the district attorney. I mean, I've enjoyed working with him, the sheriff. I think we got some good people.
I do.
In the county.
I think the district attorney and the sheriff are both very concerned, and the chief of police, Bobby Dodd, does a great job for the city. Another
thing that I know you see a lot of this. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could pay our police officers a lot more money, Russell?
It would be. It would be, because they put their life out on the line. When we see somebody from the military, we always thank them for their service, and I agree with that. But the police department, same situation. Thank them for their service, because they are getting low pay, and they put their lives out on the line
every night.
Every time.
When you see a police car heading down the road in some bad neighborhood with them blue lights, and I've been there, they pass me, and I say, Doc, now see, those boys, they got to run toward the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, you can turn around and head back. And when you get there, they got to swing in, and they got to get out. They can't act like they're cowards. They got to jump in there and maybe run around the back of the house. And I mean, it's a dangerous job. And I think the average salary is about $38,000 in it.
It is, and when a lot of times people come to court, good citizens, and they're upset because they get stopped for a speeding ticket or something. And I always explain to them that there's a lot more to policing than just giving speeding tickets. And the reason they give the speeding tickets is because we have so many people die on our highways. Actually, you get more people dying in cars than you do with guns and drugs. And so that is something that people need to do, is slow down and stay back and pay attention. You and I probably do it at our age, but the young people have a tendency to move fast and get up behind somebody.
Well, I know some older guys that travel pretty fast.
Do you really?
Yeah.
They have souped-up cars.
In that second childhood.
Souped-up cars.
In that childhood.
We won't mention any names today.
No. But I do know I can look in the rearview mirror if I see a car. I watch that. But anyway, I think our time is just about up, Russell. But I've got about 2 more minutes. I want to use that 2 minutes to tell you that I appreciate you, and I appreciate the example you set.
Thank you.
I appreciate the life you live. I appreciate your friendship. I've never called on you that you wasn't there. Just like today, I mean, you could have been somewhere else, and but you'll mean a lot to this program. And when you hear it, it comes on 8:30 on Saturday morning, and 12:30 on Sunday.
Well, thank you, Curtis. I did want to say that everybody's had problems back in their life, and I did years back, and I turned to God and family and to my church, and it means so much. And everybody out there, stay close to your church and stay close to the good Lord.
Well, you had a good family too. And
I did.
And that meant a lot. And
I lost my mom not long ago. She was 100 years old.
Really?
Yeah. And
I lost my dad and my mother, and Dot's lost her dad and mother. And it's a different world when they're gone. It
is.
And we've got 11 grandchildren and 10 great-grandchildren, so we got a lot
Wow.
of company around. We did a lot of trick-or-treating last night.
I bet.
But thank you so much. Anytime me and Earl Freeberg can ever help you anyway. If you want to come, ask us to come speak somewhere, me or Earl, one will cover it for you.
Okay.
Wherever. It don't matter.
Well, thank you for
Just
that.
call and say, I went down to your program. I want you to come out and speak.
We might do that out at church. And one of my favorite times is going to eat with you guys. I can solve all the problems when we go eat.
The only thing that embarrassed me is we got to work on this is Earl's table manners.
Yeah.
Will you help me talk? I
Yeah.
don't want to say that to him, but, we need to talk to him on that.
We need when he leaves a tip, he needs to leave more than a quarter.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.